Today we're diving into a fascinating case study of a retail media network being built, and that is from Thrive Market. This is based on an article I published for my Forbes column on January 20th of this year, and it's about how Thrive Market took a unique approach to building their retail media network, one that puts the member experience first, and I would also add one that puts their suppliers first as well. Let's jump into it. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. What I think is interesting about this story is how Thrive Market approached building their retail media network from the ground up with their vendors and suppliers in mind, as well as the customer experience. So I recently had the chance to speak with April Lane, who is Thrive's Chief Merchandising Officer, about this new retail media network that they launched in November of last year. And the results that they shared with me are really impressive. They've not only doubled their revenue expectations from the media network, but they got over a quarter of their brand partners to invest in the platform just in the first month. And I don't have a whole lot of comparative stats because retailers don't share this type of information very freely. But I've got to say that one quarter number sounds very promising to me. Out of hundreds of suppliers that they have, getting a quarter on board and presumably, without a stick involved here, like you must commit this, to funding the retail media network as part of trade negotiations. That number sounds very good. But here's what's really interesting. Thrive is, unlike a lot of the other retailers that we might talk about that are building media networks, Thrive is not a public company. They're a private public benefit corporation, which means they're not running from quarter to quarter trying to meet Wall Street expectations. It means that they can prioritize member experience over immediate revenue gains. And I think this is potentially a big reason why they were able to get that kind of adoption on board, is that they could take their time. They're not being questioned at every earnings call and analyst briefing about why they don't have a retail media network yet and being put under pressure to roll something out and prove that it's growing and everything. Because they could operate on their own time, I think they could afford to be a little bit more careful about what this looked like. They're also a membership-based retailer, which is not entirely dissimilar to an Amazon or even a Walmart, where they have really strong loyalty programs and paid memberships in the case of Amazon and Walmart. Thrive is entirely membership-based, so that gives them some nice tailwinds in terms of a retail media network we'll get into. So let's talk about what makes their approach to retail media unique. First off, their members shop differently. And while most e-commerce customers might buy, one or two items at a time, Thrive's members are filling baskets with 15 to 20 items at a time. And that completely changes how they need to think about advertising to these members who are building pretty large baskets out at any given time. April shared an interesting perspective on this. She explained that while sponsored products in search made complete sense as a starting point, they're also having to think pretty carefully about where else ads might fit naturally into the member experience. So they're asking questions like, should we put ads in the auto ship experience? And if so, how do they do that? Now I want to talk about April Lane for a second, because she brings some pretty serious credentials to this project. She spent 12 years at Amazon and was actually involved with launching retail media for Amazon Fresh. So she's no stranger to building technology inside a retailer, and she really brought that experience to bear in this case. They ended up partnering with Instacart's Carrot Ads, and we dug into that a little bit around why they made that choice. When they were searching for their ad tech solution partners, Thrive Market wanted something that would work both for the big brands and the smaller players. And that's crucial because Thrive works with hundreds of brands and many of them are emerging players in the health and wellness space. So these smaller brands in particular, they are used to self-serve advertising. They want to be able to create and manage and adjust campaigns on the fly. And so Thrive was looking for a platform with self-service capabilities, specifically that would integrate out of the gate with popular ad management tools like PackView. Thrive says that they're seeing strong engagement with their sponsored product ads. They're running sponsored product ads across search, browse, product listing pages, and buy it again carousels. And they're planning to expand into display advertising and video formats this spring. So here's what I find most compelling about this story. It's really a great test case for how to build a retail media network that serves both brands and customers, and how they really led their decision around a tech stack that would create the best experience for their suppliers. And this is related to a topic I recently covered in a Forbes column around how a lot of the incumbent retailers are adding on retail media in a way that can kind of feel like a gotcha to advertisers. They're forcing trade spend in through JBPs. They're not transparent or easy to work with. And in this case, I think Thrive approached it in this really consultative manner, working with their vendors, asking them, which ad tech solutions do you use? What do you want this to look like? And then Thrive went and found a vendor that would offer a great solution and integrate with that ad tech that their vendors are already using. And so this means the brands and the vendors are likely to adopt this retail media channel way more. And that's why I think they got to a quarter of vendors onboarding and spending money on the platform in the first month. So that's all for today's episode. If you want to dive deeper into this story, check out my full article and interview with April Lane on Forbes.com. I'll link up to that article in the show notes. Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.